the man we've been waiting for, Mr. Robert Kiyosaki. Let's bring Robert in right now. Are you there, Robert?
I'm here. I'm here. I'm here.
Good on you. You're looking fantastic. How's everything in Arizona?
Well, we're hot. It's always pretty nice.
Well,
I'd rather Aussie.
Robert, we're cold, so we're not hot at all. Robert, I've got to tell you, I'm so thrilled to have you on the program. I have watched your career over 30 years plus. We've crossed paths over the years and whatever, and it's always great to see you speak. And I've been there behind the scenes seeing your work as well. But I'm so thrilled that you could be here on our first launch of our first live stream. I couldn't think of anybody better to be here sharing the program with Harry. I'm so thrilled. And when I read your CV, that you are the #1 seller in your genre, in your subject, in personal finance, in the world, you need no more introduction. How good's that?
Except
you are the best. And, you've got 2 new books coming out. I'm sure you're going to mention about those 2 new books that have come out, so I won't say too much more. But one last thing before I throw to you. You wrote 2 books with Donald Trump. Yep. Now, that was 10, 15 years ago with Donald Trump.
Why We Want You to Be Rich.
Right.
This one here is The Midas Touch, and this was written for entrepreneurs.
Well,
this is before he became president.
Fantastic. Look, I didn't even know that you're going to have those up your sleeve, but why not? I would if I was you. And look, the reality is, did you have any idea that that man would go on to become the president of America, an unbelievable president? Because when Donald Trump leaves the scene, there's going to be a gaping big hole because the guy is such a subject. Everybody's turning the TV on just to listen to the man speak. It's fantastic. So you've had a great time writing books with him. So for that, over to you.
Yeah, it was 8 years with Donald Trump, and I know some people hate him, and some people love him, and they're never going to change. I'm not going to change your mind. If you hate Donald, you'll hate him forever. You love Donald, you love him forever. So that's the way it is with him. But anyway, hello, Aussie. I wish I was in your beautiful, beautiful land. I first went to Aussie in 1976, and I went there to play rugby union. I played in New Zealand as well as Aussie, and Americans are not known for playing rugby, so we lost every game we played. But nonetheless, I loved it, loved it, loved it, and I've been going back to Aussie ever since. So anyway, I wish I was going to be there. Tonight, I'm honored to be sharing the platform with Harry Dent, because Harry Dent is the man with the plan. You know, he is a man who cycles and trends. And when Harry speaks, people like myself listen, because as you know, everything is changing at high rates of speed, and we need to change also. So I'm going to be a student like you, listening to what Harry Dent has to say. But nonetheless, one of the most important skills for investors as well as entrepreneurs or just ordinary citizens is your ability to see the future. So I'll be talking tonight about how I can see the future, what I've done, and what I see is possibly going to happen now that this COVID crisis has hit. And I'll also tell you, I'm like Donald Trump. I will tell you what's true for me. I don't expect you to agree with me, but I assure you I will never be politically correct. I will not say to you things I think you should hear just so you like me. I will tell you exactly what's true for me, so you don't have to guess where I'm at. And that was one of the biggest lessons I got from working with the Donald, was that you always knew where he was. You didn't have to guess. So I'll be the same way with you. So before I go on, for those who may not know, I'm the author of this book here. It was turned down. This came out in 1997. It was turned down by every publisher in the US because they said I didn't know what I was talking about. And I wrote this book in 1997 because I could see this crisis coming. I didn't see the pandemic. but I'll be telling you tonight what I saw and why this crisis is serious. And it concerns me because I've been going to Aussie since 1976, and you guys have not had a recession the longest in history. But unfortunately, I got in a lot of trouble in Aussie also because I was telling people what I saw, what I thought. Like I was highly critical of your superannuations, and that was not popular. And as you know, there's a lot of monkey business in your superannuations. The other thing I criticized severely was your negative gearing in property. One of the reasons your property is in such a bubble is that Aussies negative gear. It makes no sense to me. Now, I've owned property in Aussie. I own a property in Rushcutters Bay and one property in King's Cross. And I wish I had not sold them because they're great properties. But that was in the 80s, and then property prices went up, 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 up. And no matter what I did, your Aussie real estate brokers kept trying to tell me, well, you should negative gear. Well, you've got to be an idiot. Why would you negative gear when you don't have to? But because you're taught to negative gear, you do it. So one of the reasons, exactly as the gentleman just on the screen said, the property prices are going to come down harder, is because your basis, the real reason for investing in real estate, is disappearing. So it's your silly, silly real estate agents that are setting you guys up. So anyway, when I came out with Rich Dad Poor Dad in 1997, again, it was the Aussies that welcomed me and accepted much of what I had to say, although it was controversial in Aussie, and your Australian Broadcasting Commission came after me because they didn't like me criticizing you guys. But I do know what I'm talking about, and this crisis is here today, and trust me, it's a big one. So when Harry Dent comes up, please listen to what he has to say about the future, because the future will never be the same. The other thing is this, I wrote this book here I started writing in 1999. It's called Rich Dad's Prophecy. It was published in 2002. And I stated that the biggest stock market crash in history would come in 2016. Well, as you know, there was a crash in 2000 with the Thai baht crash. And then there was a subprime crash, which is a derivatives crash in 2008. That came on schedule. But 2016 did not come because after 2008, I did not foresee the Federal Reserve Bank of the United States printing trillions of dollars. They call it quantitative easing. It's literally counterfeiting fake money is the real term for it. And then they had ZIRP, zero interest rate policies. That makes no sense, But in 2008, when the markets crashed, the best real estate in America went on sale. And then they dropped interest rates. So prices of property were dropping and interest rates were dropping. I thought I died and went to heaven because in crashes is when real investors get rich. And we're at that same time right now. So let me say it again. This book predicted the crash of 2000, 2008, and then 2016. The 2016 crash did not come until March of 2020. And we're here today now. I did not foresee this fake pandemic crisis, but I'll explain to you why I call it fake. But for now, I will show you a video to prove I can see the future, like Harry Dent. But in January of 2008, I went on CNN, the comical news network, the communist news network, whatever it's called, with Wolf Blitzer. And in January, I was saying that the biggest stock market crash was coming in that year, and Lehman Brothers would go bust. And Wolf Blitzer couldn't stop me, because as you know, the news media is fake also. So he couldn't stop me, but I already let it out. So what happened is, so that was January of 2008, and then September of 2008, Lehman Brothers collapsed. If you had listened to me in January of 2008, you've been fine. But the people did not listen, and they listened to their financial planners and real estate agents instead. So just to prove I know what I'm talking about, here's a clip from Wolf Blitzer and myself on CNN. Here we go.
If people start pulling out of the markets in their 50s, in their early 60s, and not having that sort of exposure, we are never going to get to a point where our money lasts as long as we need it to. We need to be participants in this system into our 70s and into our 80s, and then we need a plan for withdrawing those assets, just like we needed a plan for putting those assets in.
Yes, and you're putting those assets into those investment bankers that are in financial trouble today. And all I'm saying is, aren't these guys supposed to be the smartest guys on earth? And shouldn't we be careful who we take financial advice from, including the four of us on this panel?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of bad advice
But Robert,
out there.
you're really that worried about Goldman Sachs and Lehman Brothers?
Yes. I'm afraid the Federal Reserve will eventually or come close to bailing them out. That's what I'm concerned about. And that young lady who says the taxpayers are not in trouble, who's going to pay for that bailout again as the taxpayer?
Lehman Brothers says it plans to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection.
The collapse of Lehman Brothers.
Lehman Brothers collapsed.
Hundreds of bailed out banks are still struggling to repay taxpayers.
It's no secret that the California housing bubble has popped with hardships spread wide. Real estate expert Robert Kiyosaki predicted all of this would happen back in 2005, but most people didn't listen.
It's the biggest financial bubble in the history of the world.
Hoping this wasn't inevitable, but we have had a big jump in foreclosure filings. Let me tell you a little about this. There are 650,000 homes in the United States in foreclosure right now.
U.S. foreclosure activity jumped 81% in 2008.
10 million people lost their homes to foreclosure and were forced out onto the streets.
You want to know what real estate's going to do? Look at jobs.
Right.
We still have a bad job situation, so
Right.
it's still a bad real estate situation.
Right. Real estate is only as valuable as there's jobs.
What made you write Conspiracy of the Rich?
It goes back to why don't we have financial education in our schools?
Question: was the financial crisis a creation of a wicked conspiracy? A new online book, Conspiracy of the Rich, The 8 New Rules of Money, exposes what author Robert Kiyosaki says is a twisted tale of how the rich control the world economy through, you name it, the Fed, Wall Street, your schools, and the government that supports these entities. Robert Kiyosaki is the author of the best-selling Rich Dad, Poor Dad series. His first book in the series has held a top spot on the New York Times bestseller list for 6 years running. And he joins us on the program today. Hello, Robert. What is this conspiracy theory? You mean it's a few people at the top handling all of us like puppets on a string? Say it isn't so.
Well, I wish it wasn't so, but I've been a student of this crisis since around 1983, and I could see it coming back in 1983. People that are following the old rules, such as work hard, save money, get out of debt, live below your means, and invest in a well-diversified portfolio of mutual funds, you're getting wiped out.
So anyway, so, that's Rich Dad's prophecy. And as I said, the biggest crash was coming in 2016. But because of quantitative easing, which is printing fake money or counterfeit money, and zero interest rate policies, it didn't come until March of 2020. And I think personally, because this is my truth, I can't prove it, but I'm very suspicious. I think this COVID crisis is a smokescreen. It's a smokescreen. It's to cover up the biggest cash heist going in the history of the world. And I think what they're going to do is try to stick, vaccines in us, which will kill us. But they're going to make trillions sticking needles in us. That's why I don't trust them. That's what I believe. If you don't believe it, fine. But you can trust me that I will tell you what I think. I won't say, wash your hands and wear a mask and social distance. That ain't going to save you from the economic crisis, sports fans. But anyway, where I got a lot of my information from was here. It's called The Grunch of Giants. It was written by a man named Dr. R. Buckminster Fuller. He's one of the greatest geniuses of our times. He invented the geodesic dome, and the geodesic dome was the U.S. pavilion at the World's Fair at Expo 67 in Montreal, Canada. And I had the honor of studying with Dr. Fuller 3 times in my lifetime, 81, 82, and 83. And in 83, this book came out, Grunch of Giants. It stands for Gross Universal Cash Heist. It's how the ultra-rich steal our wealth through our money, our schools, and the system. So ladies and gentlemen, that's how I know, but I know some of you already hate me, like people hate Trump, but trust me, I will tell you what I think, and I know I might be wrong. But this whole pandemic, I believe, is fake. That's what I believe, and I'll explain why tonight. And once again, that was Rich Dad's prophecy, and it's coming true now. The biggest stock market crash didn't come in 2016. It came in March of 2020. And that's why all of you standing here, being in this audience tonight here, it's a very important time, because regardless if the pandemic is fake or not, the world has changed forever. And all the old rules of money, just as was predicted, have changed. So I'll be going into tonight a little bit of how I predict the future, what I think is coming, but why I think I commend you for being part of this webinar tonight, because this is probably the most important thing you could be doing tonight. So I'll be using this whiteboard here, but bear with me. I'm an old guy, and I'm not good technologically, so bear with me here. So I'll just go into the story of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I'll just say this much. You have my rich dad, and you have poor dad. And this is where the differences started. My poor dad, what he thought was important was this thing called a diploma. He was so proud. He had a PhD. He was so proud. He went to Stanford, Northwestern, University of Chicago, and when he got his PhD, he thought he was Jesus Christ or something. Very smart man, very good man. And everything was fine until he lost his job, and he lost his paycheck, and he lost his pension. And when I came back, I was a pilot in Vietnam. I flew for the U.S. Marine Corps. When I came back from Vietnam, my poor dad was unemployed. And then he tried to tell me to go back to school, get my master's degree, get my PhD. And I said, I'd wind up just like you, Dad. I didn't get it. But when you're old, it's hard to change the brain cells in your mind. So anyway, my rich dad was very, very different. He believed in a piece of paper also. But what he thought was important was a thing called a financial statement. Now, let me just say this much. I asked my accountant, Tom Wheelwright, I said, and he teaches accountancy to accountants and entrepreneurs. And I asked him, I said, of 1,000 college graduates, how many know what a financial statement is? And Tom said 0. So that brings up the question, why doesn't our school system teach us about money? Or what does school teach you about money? What they tell you to do is save money. Now, don't be so damn stupid. Why would you be saving money when the Federal Reserve Bank of America is printing trillions of dollars? You gotta be crazy. That's absolutely nuts. And why would you be getting out of debt when the dollar became debt in 1971? So those are really, things I've been asking myself since I was a kid. So for those who may not know what a financial statement is, the first thing on this side is income. Everybody, my poor dad, that's what he wanted. He wanted a high-paying job, make lots of money. But what my poor dad couldn't see was the first line item expense here, income expenses is called a P&L, is taxes. Well, why would you work so damn hard make more money, and pay more in taxes. So I know a lot of people are sitting at home right now, hoping the economy comes back, hoping to get their job back, hoping to make more money, only to pay more taxes. Are you nuts? Jesus. Now, the most important thing is this thing here. This is an asset and liabilities. That's the big difference here. This is called a balance sheet. So there's 3 types of financial statements in the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Income statement, call it P&L. Asset and liability, call it balance sheet, and then a statement of cash flow. So as a young boy of 9 years old, this is what my rich dad was teaching me. And my poor dad wanted to get my PhD. He also, because I was a pilot, he wanted me to go fly for the airlines, United Airlines. I said, all I am is a high-paid employee here. So I didn't want to do it. But anyway, this is the difference here, okay? So that's poor dad. This is rich dad here. And the average person does not know the difference because our schools have no financial education. So when you look at this here, let me see this here. In 1996, my wife and I created this board game called Cash Flow because the 2 most important words in money are cash flow. And as we all know, for most people, the cash is flowing out. There's no cash flowing in, So this here is the most important part of the board game. That's the original board game back there. But this here is the real board game in the game of cash flow. It's called a financial statement. And this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I don't know where it is now, but Rich Dad, Poor Dad is simply a book on accounting, the single most boring subject on planet Earth. To make my poor dad happy when I came back from Vietnam, I went to get my MBA. I was in the MBA program, and I'm sitting in the accounting class and I'm sound asleep. This guy was so boring, I didn't need sleeping pills. It was horrible, horrible teacher. But anyway, so all we did in Rich Dad, Poor Dad is we made the financial statement interesting. So here we have income statement, balance sheet, statement of cash flow. That's what an entrepreneur needs to know. And then because people said, well, my kids need to know this, we came up with a board game for kids. And notice it's in colors and all this. So this here is the income statement, this is the balance sheet, and these are statements of cash flow. So this gives your child a financial head start, the same thing my rich dad gave me starting at 9. And what I knew at the age of 9, when you look at this here, was that's what made me rich, assets. And that's where my poor dad focused. And most people right now sitting at home, hoping this pandemic ends, are still hoping to make more money when this is here what the rich are focusing on. Now this is the good news, exactly as the gentleman before me said, the prices of real estate in Aussie are coming down like a rock. Man, it's time to drop to your knees and thank Jesus. God Almighty. I was telling I love Aussie. You live in paradise. Love that country, love your country. So when I saw the Aussie go from like 70 to 55 cents to the dollar, and the US dollar went up, I said, if I was Catholic, I'd take laps around the rosary bead. I wanted to fly into Aussie and start buying the best real estate in the world because the differential in foreign exchange was massive. Plus, exactly as the guy said, your real estate prices are coming down. Man, if you can't get rich now, hang it up. You're a disgrace. You're a disgrace to your great country. But again, the problem is you guys have been sold a bill of goods by your real estate agent saying that negative gearing makes sense and all that other garbage you're taught. Now is the time to get rich, but you've got to stop thinking the way your real estate agents tell you because they're a bunch of losers. And I don't listen to them. Anyway, this is what Rich Dad, Poor Dad is about. This here is a financial statement, and my poor dad had a PhD. That's why he was poor. So, with that out of the way, let me see if I can move this now. Not moving. I'll just erase it. Okay. Okay, like I said, I'm 73 years old. I don't know much about technology. Anyway, where's my pen? Oh, here it is. So I'm going to go into the second book, and this book called The Cash Flow Quadrant. If I can find it. That's this book here. Okay. And that was book number 2, but many people say that's the book that changed their lives. And what the Cash Flow Quadrant's about okay, and this is true all over the world. E stands for employee, S stands for self-employed, small business owner, or a specialist like a doctor or an accountant. Okay. Also stands for smart people. And B stands for big business, 500 employees or more, and I stands for insider. Okay, you think, what? Isn't inside investing illegal? No. That's where the money is made. You have to invest the inside. Where these yo-yos out here, they have a super, and your supers are in trouble. I was just there last year. Your supers are being ripped apart. That's why this book here, here it is here. This book came out here in 2020. It's Who Stole My Pension? And all over the world, pensions are being ripped blind because it says right here, what's America's #1 export? America's #1 export are fake assets, toxic assets. So your pensions, for your school teachers, firefighter, police officers, your super, are filled with them. And the U.S. Wall Street, they're criminals. They're ripping people off legally. And we all know that, but we don't say anything. We want to be nice little Vegemites, be nice people. Why are you being screwed? That's the problem. So anyway, so this here is important, book number 2, but what comes up next that most people is the word taxes. Now, who do you think pays the taxes? Well, of course, these guys. This is poor dad. This is rich dad. So over here, the employee will pay 40% of their gross in taxes. To make $1,000, $400 goes to the tax department. For the S, 60%. So you small business owners, you're getting screwed. So every $1,000, $600 goes to the government. On the big business side is 20%. Now, big business, 500 employees or more, also stands for brand. The most powerful asset an entrepreneur can have is a brand. And that's why I'm happy to say that Rich Dad is an international brand. That's what makes me rich, not my college degree. And this here, the inside investor, 0%. So when you look at this here, if you're waiting for the economy to come back and you plan to go find another high-paying job or go back to school at RMIT or something, you're crazy. You're going to be a doctor or a lawyer. You're crazy. You're just going to pay more in taxes. So one of the things for the future, and Harry Dent will say, it might be better. You can keep your daytime job here, but you may want to be in 2 quadrants. You may be this, but become an inside investor. An inside investor is somebody, it could be a real estate investor, because real estate investors are insiders. Whereas if you're a superannuation guy, you're an outsider. Or you can be here like a doctor or a lawyer, and you may want to come here and do real estate. Very few people can do this one. Very, very. This is Steve Jobs. This is Bezos of Amazon, Bill Gates, and all this. I was fortunate enough because as a young man, that's where I went to. So I operate over here, and this is my poor dad wanted me to operate here. So when I came back from Vietnam in 1973, my poor dad wanted me to get a job as an airline pilot. Well, thank God I didn't, because when you read this book here, the airline pilots, not only all their planes grounded today, their pensions were ripped off about 5 years ago. You know, my classmates who flew for United Airlines, they don't have a pension today because they got a high-paying job over here. So one of the things I suggest you think about in the future is, you want to stay here or do you want to move here? And you don't have to do, you know, like, the reality is, I'm all for. I'm an employee of my own company. I also write my own books here. I also own this. I own the brand Rich Dad. It's an international brand. And I invest from the inside. So a person can be all for, but most people are just one, and they have a super. That's why you get screwed. And that's what they tell you to do in school. So that's the second lesson. So the next lesson I want to talk to you about is a thing called the shadow banking system. And this is my forte. Because when I was 9 years old, you know, I raised my hand. I was in school in Hilo, Hawaii, a little sugar plantation town. And I asked my fourth grade teacher, I said, when will I learn about money? And she says, I think she was church lady, she says, the love of money is the root of all evil. And I said to her, read between the lines, man, you know. I said, it may be evil to you, but I want to learn about money. So that's when I went home to my poor dad, and I said, when will I learn about money? And he says, I don't know. I said, because I'm an employee. And I said, why don't you ask your friend's father, who was Rich Dad? So what is my rich dad? He's an entrepreneur. And he says, what's the difference between employees and entrepreneurs? He says, entrepreneurs must know about money, or they don't survive. So with that, I went to study with my rich dad. And the more I studied about money, every year I studied more and more and more. And that's why I read this book here in '83, A Grunge of Giants, about how our wealth is stolen from us via our money. And so this is what I found out, and this is kind of the advanced lesson here, is that let's say this is the street. Above the street, you have a bank. You have government buildings. Can't see that well. So that's what it looks like on the surface. When you're walking down any street, you know, Melbourne, America, Paris, South America, that's what it looks like. That's what the monetary system looks like. But it's what's going on underneath here is the wiring down here. This is called the shadow banking system. It's also called the commercial paper market. It's also called the corporate credit market. What is so important about this market here is the average guy cannot see it. All you see is your neighborhood bank, all you see is the government office, and you see your stockbroker's office. That's all you see. But the real action is going on down here, and this is where the biggest banks and the richest people bank. So your Commonwealth Bank doesn't go up here. Your Commonwealth Bank is banking down here. HSBC, Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation, they bank here. Deutsche Bank banks down here. United Airlines banks down here. Qantas banks down here. Private equity banks down here. So the richest guys in the world are banking here. Now this is why I'm saying that this COVID crisis is fake. Because what happened on September 2019, this baby crashed. So over here, everything looked fine. The stock market was still going up and all this. Interest rates were coming down. Everybody was happy. Trump was saying this is the best economy in the whole world. But this was crashing. And everybody who knows anything knew this was in serious trouble. And what happened down here, while the interest rates were coming down up here, interest rates were going up here. And they went as high as 10%. So that meant, let's say Commonwealth Bank says we're out of money. So they go to the shadow banking system, this whole maze of pipes and twists, and said, lend us money. And nobody would lend Commonwealth Bank money or HSBC or JP Morgan money because the banks were going bust. And the hedge funds were going bust. And the private equity market was going bust. So meanwhile, everybody's happy up here. So in September 2019, anybody who understood the financial system knew a crash was coming. What I didn't foresee, and I don't think anybody else foresaw, was in December 2019, Corona appears. Now, if you may remember, so I said, that is fishy. So I could be wrong, but to me, it was smelly. Because you remember, Hong Kong was rioting at that time. Hong Kong was so pissed off at China, and suddenly, ooh, Wuhan pops up. No more rioting. There was rioting in Paris. Suddenly, nobody was rioting. There was rioting in Santiago, Chile. No more rioting. You had socialized distancing and all this stuff. They locked down everybody else because the world, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, the world was on the verge of revolt. At the same time, this was crashing. So I could be wrong, but I'm going to tell you as best I know. And if you hate me for it, at least you know I'm telling you the best I know at this moment. That this thing, that's where the problem is. It's still where the problem is. And up here, these guys have not a clue. Mom and pop have got their heads so far up their asses, they can't even see straight. But without financial education, they can't see this. And this is where the crisis is happening right now. Again, it's commercial paper, corporate credit. You know, the corporate CEOs of like Ford, AT&T, IBM, all those guys, they were ripping off Wall Street. They were ripping off the stock because what these asked me, what these guys are doing, the CEOs were doing, was they were borrowing money to buy back their stocks. So it sent the stock prices through the roof. Those CEOs should go to jail as well as with the banks down here. So they jack the prices up, the market crashes. So suddenly AAA corporations are now BBB, junk. They're now junk bonds. These CEOs drove their corporations into the junk category with massive debt borrowed to pay for stock prices, which they parachuted out with. So that's what this book here, Crunch of Giants, what Bucky Fuller was saying, is the people at the very top are ripping off mom and pop. And that's why there's no financial education in our schools. So if you understand that, you better understand why your Australian Broadcasting Commission came after me. And that's why Wall Street comes after me. That's why my book here, I love this book here, Fake Money, Fake Teachers, Fake Assets. It was banned in China. you know, it must be a good book if the Chinese hate me, you know, because those bastards. I'm not anti the Chinese people, but you do know the Chinese and their money are tight. So way back when, back 1999, I started a gold mine in China, and I took it public through an IPO on the Toronto Stock Exchange. And once we struck gold, the Chinese government took it from us. So I wrote about that theft here in this book here, and that's why this book is banned. And I was in China this summer, and I was very lucky just to get out alive, because the Chinese, as you know, they're tight. Their money and tight. Okay, so anyway, so this here is the shadow banking system, and this is what most people say. The problem is here. So long after the COVID or the corona disappears, this is the problem you have to depend on. Now, if you're smart, this will make you very rich. And if you're stupid, this will make you very, very poor. So let me explain the other part of the shadow banking system. At the top of the pyramid is the Federal Reserve Bank of the US. That's the Bank of England, Bank of Japan, European Central Bank, and the Royal Bank of Australia. But the Fed, the US Fed, is the one, and these guys control gold. They have gold. They have approximately, I think, 8,000 tons of gold. Bank of England has 0. Canada has 0. The Chinese are buying gold right now because gold is real money. But the way the banking system works is this here. So these guys are at the top. You look at the dollar bill, you'll see that pyramid there. Well, below that is the first tier, second tier, third tier, fourth tier. There's 4 basic levels of banks. And then there's so that's the people that use the money, you and me. Okay? And without financial education, you don't see this. But the only way this banking system works is what happened in 1971. Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard. And the way the system works here is these guys here lend money to this guy here. See, what happens in 1971, if they don't lend, money only comes into existence via debt. So they lend money to here, so money is created. And then these guys lend money here. And then these guys lend money here. And then these guys lend money here. And it's the pile of debt just getting bigger and bigger. So today, it's in the quadrillions all over the world. And then over here, these guys get screwed. So mom and pop, oh, I got a credit card. You know, I can go shopping at David Jones. You know, I can buy a house. I have a car and all these. These guys get screwed. And that's why there's no financial education in our school system. Because if they knew this was going on, they wouldn't be so stupid. So this here is the real game of money. And it's all based upon debt after 1971. So when you understand that, you'll understand now why I don't do what my financial planners or my superannuation guys teach me, or my real estate agents. So what happened, this whole pyramid came crashing down in September of 2019. And that's why we have a corona crisis today. So with that said, I'll go into the future. I'll tell you what I do, how I'm preparing for the future. Because when other people are being damaged because of guys like Harry Dent who are warning us this was coming, and you can see the future, you can prepare for it. So I'm making more money than ever before. A couple of my properties got hit because vacancies went up, but I know the government's going to give me the money to cover my properties because the government always protects the rich. So anyway, aside from a couple of hits in real estate, we're doing fine. But I will show you my formula for getting rich, and there's a million ways you can do it. Just change your attitude towards this crisis, because this crisis is the biggest opportunity you may ever have in your lifetime. But what happens is this, again, going back to this. So in 1997, we created the Rich Dad brand. Where we make our money is IP. It's called intellectual property. You can do the same thing. This is international property. I mean, informational property, IP. So when I wrote this book in 2019, I sold it to 50 publishers throughout the world. I have no money in the deal. So the money pours in. So let's keep the math simple. This is the McDonald's formula of business. So this is McDonald's, let's say. And McDonald's, when you look at Ray Kroc, founder of McDonald's, when you asked him, read Rich Dad Poor, they said, what business is McDonald's in? Everybody said hamburgers. And Ray said, no. McDonald's is in the real estate business. So because they knew the product. So they have hamburgers here. I have intellectual property here. But we invest in real estate. And because we invest in real estate, we use debt. Debt is wonderful stuff because it's tax-free money. Like in 2008 when the markets crashed, my partners and I borrowed $300 million. So when people say, well, how do you borrow $300 million? Again, it goes back to this. We have strong financial statements. The average person doesn't have financial statements. So our financial statements are very strong. We borrowed the $300 million. So this is the way I make my money. And this is not the only way. You just got to figure out your way. This is my way. So what happens is, let's say I make $1 million here by selling books and games and things like this. So down here, just like the Fed does, come down here and I borrow $4 million. Get tax-free money. So now my basis is $5 million. With this $5 million, I amortize. That means my tenants pay off my debt for me, tax-free. I depreciate. And the same thing goes on in Austin. So if you have negative gears, it's stupid. Right? I depreciate, which means because this is $5 million, this is tax-free. Because the money I'm losing here technically offsets this million, so I pay no tax up here. And then there's appreciation on the properties. Because I bought it so low in 2008, the property went up, and their property appreciated. That's all tax-free money. All of this is tax-free. So I borrow, I earn $1 million, borrow $4 million, step up my basis to $5 million. And today my portfolio for over $500 million. I couldn't do that with a job. And that's kind of what we teach at Rich Dad here. And you can do the same thing. You say, well, you can't do that in Aussie. Yes, you can. That's what Packers and Murdochs do. That's what the rich do. If you understand that, you'll know why these guys here, the rich guys, in our school send us here to be this. Those are the differences. Very, very big differences. So, in closing, the thing I'd like to say is this, is that I agree with the gentleman who is an expert on Aussie real estate, is you guys are coming down hard. Now, for the people who are negative geared, that's really stupid. Why would you do that? When I was in Aussie, I kept saying, why do you guys negative gear? So we'll get a tax break. I said, you get a tax break for losing money? You gotta be crazy. You don't have to, how can you be that stupid? Americans are stupid, but that's even more stupid. I just never got it. So I got hammered by your real estate agents, and they don't like me anymore. But anyway, I'll just tell you what I know. Why would you negative gear when you don't have to negative gear? You can positively gear and pay no taxes anyway. But you have to have a good accountant and all that stuff. So in closing, the thing I want to say is this. I love your country. I love your people. You live in God's country as far as I'm concerned. You have no natural predators. I mean, nobody hates Australia. Americans, people hate America, they hate America. But you say you're from Aussie, everybody wants to go to Aussie. People love Aussie. But the only people that hate Aussies are Aussies. I mean, I can't believe, not only do you have negative gearing, you have the tall poppy syndrome. You tear yourselves down. That's unheard of. Why would you tear yourselves down? You live in the best place on planet Earth. It makes no sense to me. It's God's country. Yet you guys tear each other down. Some of the greatest rugby players in world history, like Ken Pesey and Farr Jones. You guys are gods in our world. But in Aussie, you guys tear each other down. The best cricket teams, best soccer teams, best swimmers. That spirit is the Aussie spirit, but you guys tear each other down. So I want to just say this much. Get off of it. Know you live in the best place on earth. This little iPhone, was invented in 2007. This made the rest of the world one phone call away. You can sit on Bondi Beach, have a long black or wherever you want to sit, and you can market to the world. But to do that, to be able to market to the world, you might have to shift your mind from there to there or to here. Think like this, or you can go from here to here. It's a mindset. It's a way of looking at the world. These guys here always say the same words. I'm looking for a safe, secure job with benefits, steady paycheck. These guys here always say the same words. If you want it done right, do it by yourself. If you don't change those words, you can't see this side of the picture. So this little iPhone here came out in 2007, connected all of you in Aussie land, God's country, to the rest of the world. This will push away. Social media, exactly doing what we're doing today, push away. So Aussie is not far away anymore. You're definitely part of the world. So anyway, I thank you. Please listen to what Harry Dent has to say. The future is very bright. Change the way you look at it. Thank you. Very much.
Thank you, Robert. That was fantastic. I've got to say, when I saw that clip, when you talked about those acidic loans and the problems of those banks, and then 6 months later, the whole world collapsed. You're a guru, mate. That was magnificent. Whatever you're going to say, I'm going to listen, because that was just spectacular. I love it. Anyway, I know it's getting rather late in Arizona. Thank you from Australia. We love it. We like you, and we look forward to your new books in the bookshops. Are they all in the bookshops right now?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you guys, Aussie, I owe more to Aussie than any other country. You guys gave me a break when other countries didn't. I played my cash flow game in Aussie land.
Yes.
America turned me down, but you guys always been welcoming to me. So I love you guys.
Yes, I know that story, and I know Michael Rakusin, so I know the whole story. It's wonderful. Anyway, thank you very much, and you have a great evening.